The other day I talked about doing a lot of work in the family courts with parents and talking to parents about their childhood. And what emerged was that there was a lot of information that parents didn't know, or questions that they didn't feel they could ask or didn't have answers to. And that being quite significant because it impacted on, key aspects of their life, like their self-esteem. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's say a parent used to observe arguments between their parents, and those arguments were often about them. And then their parents split up. Well, it's quite conceivable that that person, as a child, would think that they might have been responsible for the breakup of their parents' relationship, and that leaving them with all the negative consequences and guilt that leaves them with throughout their life. Let's take another example. Let's say that parent grew up with a child and their first attachment was to their father, and then the parents split up, and their father moved away, and they didn't see that father hardly ever, or didn't see them again. Now again, that parent might grow up feeling unloved, that they weren't loved, or worse still, that they were unlovable, and with all the negative consequences that might have for them throughout their life, and how badly that might impact on them. Now you might say that all these things were quite easily sorted out by the child just asking the parent the truth, asking them questions. But how often does that actually happen? It doesn't. When you're a child, it doesn't actually happen really, because they're going through the grief, they're going through the distress of the breakup, and so often children don't ask those sorts of questions. And they accept it. They accept what's happening in life. That becomes their reality. And by the time they're an adult, they don't, they live with it for 10, 15, 20, or 30 years, and so it's just something accepted. It's not something they want to go back and look at now that that they've become an adult. How many of us do that? We don't tend to go back and address these things. So we're left with those painful ways of looking at ourselves. So it's really crucial that we take the time to reassess who we are, and what's gone on in our lives. Because what happened as a child has no bearing necessarily for who we are now as adults. And sometimes, in fact quite often, we need help with that. We might need a mentor, we might need a friend, someone to look at those issues for us, to help us with that. Because otherwise we're locked into a negative aspect of ourselves, a negative way of seeing ourselves from the past. And that hinders our ability to make the progress that we want and deserve in our life.